Kingfisher Interpretive Center, Lesson 2, Salmon Interior.
Okay, boys and girls, welcome back to part 2 of our salmon dissection. My name is Shona, and today we get to look inside the fish and see what all of those parts are and what they're used for. But before we do that, boys and girls, let's review what we learned in our last video. Okay, so these fish have a dorsal fin. They have a tail or a caudal fin for swimming. They have an anal fin. They have 2 pelvic fins. They have 2 pectoral fins. Oh, let me get my hand out of there. There we go. They have 2 pectoral fins. They have a lateral line outside their body running down there. They've got eyes. They've got nostrils. They breathe through gills, and they're covered in slime and scales. Okay, excellent. Now, I have 2 fish here today. One of them is a boy, and one of them is a girl. How do we tell them apart? This one here has a hook in its nose. Does this fish have a hook in its nose too? No, it doesn't. So, boys and girls, the one with the big hook in its nose is the boy fish. So here's our male or our boy fish, and here's our girl fish or our female. Okay, another difference between these 2 fish, and this has nothing to do with whether they're boys or girls, is the color. So the fish we looked at yesterday is quite shiny, it's silver. This fish would have been caught closer to the ocean. This fish, you can see, is starting to change color. So you can see the red coming in here and the green starting to show up in its back. So this fish was closer to spawning. Excellent. Now, boys and girls, we're going to look inside the girl fish today. What do you think we're going to find inside? Are we going to find eggs or are we going to find milt? Now, milt is fertilizer. So the girl fish is going to hold the eggs, and the boy fish is going to be who holds the milt. All right, now I'm just going to remove this boy fish. We're just going to put him over here for a minute. So I'll be right back. So, boys and girls, here is our girl fish. Now, in order to look inside this fish, we're going to cut a window into it. And the window starts along the lateral line. Remember where that lateral line is? There it is, right there. Behind that lateral line is the backbone. So that's what we're trying to find. So here we go. So we'll make a little incision here. And then we slice along the lateral line all the way up the fish. Just like that. And if we listen, you can actually hear the backbone. I don't know if you can hear that. I'll do it one more time. So that's the backbone of the fish, boys and girls. Now I'm going to cut down here to the vent. Now the vent is where the eggs would have come out, or if it was a boy, it's where the milt would have come out. It's also where the excess food that isn't used will also be released from the fish's body. Okay, now do another slice up here so we can open the window right behind that pectoral fin. And now I'm going to slice down the rib cage. Now the ribs, boys and girls, help give the fish its shape, and they're also used to protect the organs inside the fish. And the part that I'm cutting away is actually the muscle. Now, if any of you at home enjoy eating salmon, that's the part that we like to eat, is the muscle. Maybe not on this fish, though. So we're almost there. A few more cuts, and we're going to get there. 1, 2. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to open up the window, and there it is. So there is the inside of our fish. I'm going to lift the rib cage up. And there. Boys and girls, can you see those eggs? See all this right here? Those are the eggs inside of this fish. And there's one batch of eggs right here. And there's another batch underneath on the other side of the fish. Now I'm going to remove these eggs one skein at a time. There are 2 skeins. And there we go. So there's 1 skein of eggs. My guess is that this skein holds probably over 1,000 eggs. Okay, let's remove the other one and have a look at it. So we'll just put that on the side. And this one looks a little bit bigger. We'll get that out of there. And there is the second skein of eggs. And this one's a bit bigger, so I'm guessing there's probably about 1,500 eggs here. So salmon lay a lot of eggs. They have a lot of babies because salmon are a very important part of the food chain. Excellent. Now let's have a look at what's left inside. It looks pretty empty now that all those eggs are gone, doesn't it? And there's a reason for that too. We're going to have a look at the digestive system next. And the digestive system deals with food. So the digestive system is responsible for removing the nutrients and taking the energy out of the food. These fish are cold-blooded. They aren't warm-blooded like us, so they don't require as much energy to stay warm as humans do. But let's see where the food ends up. I'm going to use my chopstick again. I'm going to put this down the fish's mouth, into its throat, and it will end up in the fish's stomach. And we're going to learn something interesting about that. Okay, so here it goes. In the mouth. And remember, those gill rakers are going to help that food go into the stomach. And here it comes. So see that food? It's going into the fish's stomach. Let's do that one more time. So I'll just take that out. And here it goes. So what I find really interesting is that that stomach is empty. There's no food in the stomach. And what we know about salmon is that when they leave the ocean, they stop eating. Why do they stop eating? Well, I think part of the reason is because we saw how much room these eggs take up inside the fish. If that stomach was full of food, there wouldn't be room for eggs to grow or the milk to grow. Now, another reason I like to think is that if this fish was swimming up the river on its way back to where it was born and it was eating all the way home, there wouldn't be any food left for its babies to survive on. So I like to think that these fish leave that food behind so that their young can survive. Okay, now let's have a look at the rest of the digestive system because there are some other parts we need to learn about. So I'm just going to pinch it off. I'm going to cut it out and we'll look at the different bits. So as I pull it out, we can see that this digestive system is connected all the way down here to the vent. So all the excess food that doesn't get digested will be released through the vent. All right. And this part here, boys and girls, is the large intestine, just like we have. So let me just remove that and we can look at the different parts. So we have a great big organ right here. This organ here rhymes with shiver. It's called the liver. That's right. And that helps with digestion of food and it plays a role in the chemicals and the sugar in the blood. Now, you can see this yellow bit in here. Now that part there, I think it's been popped. It's called the gallbladder. And the gallbladder is used to store bile. And boys and girls, you have a gallbladder inside you, just like the liver. And that bile is used to help digest fats. Okay, now we have something pretty cool here. Kind of looks like spaghetti. Well, this part of the fish's digestive system, called pyloric ceca, and no, you don't need to remember that. That pyloric ceca is kind of like our small intestine, and it helps get the nutrients out of the food. Okay, And the stomach itself, we saw right here, which is empty. And we have another organ right here. And this organ rhymes with clean. It's called the spleen. And it's actually a recycler. It helps recycle used blood. And it will store blood in case the fish needs that blood in an emergency. All right, so there's our digestive system, boys and girls. Now I'm going to put that over here to the side. Excellent. Now, what do we have left inside? It's looking pretty empty in there now, but I do see a little bit of air right here. Can you see that air going back and forth? See that air moving around? That air is stored in another important organ called the swim bladder. And usually there's much more air in that swim bladder. I must have popped this one when I cut it open. I'm still going to try and remove it, and we'll see if we can keep that little bit of air in there. So the air in the swim bladder is also really important for these fish. When this fish was a fry, when it first started swimming, the first swimming it took it right to the surface of the river, where the fry took a big gulp of air and filled the swim bladder with air. They don't use it for breathing. They use it to help them float. So there's not much air left in there. I definitely did pop it. So these fish can also adjust the amount of air in their swim bladders so they can hover at different levels in the water. Okay, we'll put that aside now too. Now, what we have is another organ. It's actually two organs, but it looks like one. And this one rhymes with Sydney. So boys and girls, this is the fish's kidneys. There's one in the front and there's one in the back. And the kidneys will help clean the blood. And more importantly, the kidneys help with concentrations of salt and water in the fish's body. And that enables these fish to be able to live in both fresh and salt water. So very important for the salmon's survival. Okay, now we're missing an organ. My goodness, what organ are we missing? We're missing the organ that pumps that blood through the body. So boys and girls at home, where is your heart? Our hearts are located right about here, right behind our ribs, next to our lungs, and they're protected. Now the fish's heart is located right there. So its heart is next to its gills, and it's in its own separate compartment. And I'm going to remove it so you guys can have a look. And I'll give you a warning, boys and girls, it doesn't look anything like a Valentine. So here we go, cut into its own compartment. Oh, I think I nicked it a little when I cut in there. Here it comes. Come on, guy. Oh yeah, I did. I gave it a little bit of a slice. So there is our fish's heart. So the heart is used to pump blood through the fish's body. Okay, excellent. Now, boys and girls, if you are interested, I would sure like to show you the eyeball of the fish. So in our last video, we talked about how the eyes are on the side of the fish's head, so the fish can see almost all the way around itself. Well, today, we're going to take that eyeball out and have a closer look. So I'm going to give it a little slice back in here. Okay, and see if that worked. I've got to get in behind it, and we're going to pop the eyeball out so that you can see how big it is. So I bet it's a lot bigger than you're expecting. So here it comes, and there it is. So what do you think of that? Pretty neat, hey? So there's our fish's eyeball. And we're going to go even deeper into this eyeball. We're going to try and remove the lens. Okay, but first I have to wipe this eyeball off because it is very slippery. So here we go. Let's see if we can get into this eyeball. Oh, see the squirt? See all that fluid come out? Okay, now we have it open. And let's see if we can get the lens out of here. Oh, the outer lens has popped, but we still have the inner lens. There's a perfectly round lens right here. The lens in a human eye is actually cup-shaped. It's not perfectly round like that. And I can tell you how this feels, so it's actually quite hard. All right, almost feels like a hard little rubber ball. Excellent. Now, the one final thing that I'd like to show you today, boys and girls, is the fish's brain. So the brain of a salmon might be a little smaller than you're expecting because these are what we call reactionary animals. They don't need to learn a language. They don't need to learn how to tell time. They certainly don't care what they're wearing. So these animals are born to survive. All right, so with that being said, let's have a look inside the fish's head. So I'm going to have to cut into it right here. Oh, let's try the other knife. So we'll cut the head open and we'll have a look at the brain. So this part might be a little gross for you, boys and girls. Okay, now I'm going to open it up. Oh, and the brain is this white part right here. So it's a little gooey because this fish has been frozen. If this was a fresh fish, the brain would be more solid than it is. So it's liquefied due to freezing. All right, so it's just that tiny little piece of white right there. All right, so let's close this fish back up. We say thank you, salmon, for letting us learn from you. And there we go, put that back together. And boys and girls, I'd like to thank you for joining us for our part 2 of our salmon dissection.